Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Phil Steppen, and I have another replay from the panda himself, FXOdesRow. Spawning in the bottom right corner, we have the panda himself, Canada's finest, FXOdesRow. Spawning in the top left, a man that needs no introduction, the macro machine, the StarCraft one, foreigner bourgeois. It is Evil Genius's EGIdrA. And one of my favorite things about pro games is the banter that goes on at the beginning of the games between the pro players. desrow asking EGIdrA whether he has had trouble with the Terran matchup, ZVT, and they are both kind of complaining about Terran, which I love because, God, I can't beat Terran either, man. I'm no master, but holy shit, dude, Widow Mines? Wow. So, EGIdrA, if you watch a stream, he has a great win percentage in ZVZ. And EGIdrA electing to go for the extractor trick there, but no early pool, so maybe he missed an overlord I wasn't really watching close enough to see. And desrow pylon at the natural expansion, standard. Interested to see whether desrow opens Forge first or Nexus first. And if you remember the last desrow game versus EGIdrA on my channel, desrow elected to go for that powerful 2-base blink all-in, which managed to crack EGIdRA's third and made EGIdrA leave the game. And I know I'm saying EGIdrA and EGIdRA, and that's because Artosis says EGIdrA, and love me some Artosis, love me some State of the Game, so it kind of rubs off on me, to be honest with you. And judging by the amount of money desrow has saved up, I can guarantee he's going to go for a Nexus first. There it is. Guaranteeing, almost, I guess you could call it metagaming, but desrow really doesn't think EGIdrA is going to all-in him. I mean, it's EGIdRA. Come on, guys, he's the macro machine. All he does is drone. EGIdRA, of course, despises players that all-in, despises players that flip coins, does his best to try to guarantee to let his mechanics take over and lead him to victory. Unfortunately, in StarCraft 2, it's not like StarCraft 1. You can't just rely on your mechanics to win you games. You have to do other things. Perfect example of this is Stefano. Like, Stefano has great mechanics, but holy shit, man! Like, if you just watch Stefano, it's almost impossible to learn from him because he just has a knack for having his army converge out of 8 places and then crush his opponent. It's insane. So, EGIdRA, very standard, taking his third, very fast, off of no gas, as well as scouting around with these 2 Zerglings to check for proxy pylons, check for possible cannon rushes, and droning, because it's EGIdRA and he drones. You gotta love him, man. desrow, gassed in his main, excuse me, and chrono boosting out probes. This is about as greedy as you get. Delays the zealots. And both players bantering, distracting me as best they can. There's really not much to say here at this point, guys. It's just extremely standard ZVP. This is exactly what you would see in Wings of Liberty to the T. Nexus first, into Forge, into herpaderpaderp. Gasless 3-hatch from the Zerg. God, my mouse accuracy is just awful today. So, perfect saturation in the main of EGIdRA. Working on the saturation of the natural. Literally nothing going on, so I'm going to speed this one up a bit. desrow working on +1. Still pure drones coming out of EGIdRA. And pure probes coming out of desrow. Here we go. Here's the first non-Wings of Liberty thing that's happening, is a mothership core coming out. One thing that Protoss players will do that is incredibly annoying to deal with is they'll just make like 3 or 4 gateway units and pressure with this mothership core. And if they get in trouble, they can literally just get out for free. So, desrow, I'm going to slow it back down, being incredibly annoying here. Poking forward, getting a proxy pylon down, so if EGIdRA decides to do the razor's edge thing and try to squeak out drones, desrow can continue to apply pressure, and a queen gets caught off creep there. That is a pain in the ass. I will tell you as a Zerg player, nothing sucks more than losing that queen, because then you won't get any creep tumors, you won't get any and you'll miss injects. So desrow didn't lose anything, and he sniped that queen. Great move by desrow, and he didn't recall because he didn't have enough energy, I believe, but he did use the time stop to save both of his gateway units. So that is a nice little variance that spices up ZVP from Wings as opposed to like Wings of Liberty ZVP. An extremely fast third coming out of desrow. It's going to finish before 8:30. And this is something that Protoss players have been doing a lot of in HOTS, is they'll just say, look, like, I think I can take an early third and still be able to out macro and defend, because the Zerg players, it's kind of like a metagame shift between Protoss would have to all in because they couldn't deal with Broodlord Infestor and Wings of Liberty, and now it's like Protoss players have the superior late game, so if they take an earlier third, they have a better economy to defend off the Zerg mid game that has gotten much stronger. EGIdrA poking forward with these slow lings that he was forced to make because of desrow's little Momship Core poke, and couldn't really do shit. Because with Protoss, right now you can just kind of make, like, okay, that sentence wasn't actually going anywhere, so I'm just going to end it. Twilight Council coming out of desrow. The Blink, love it. The Forge, love it. Double upgrades, Creator Prime style. Armor, as well as attack. Now I like to throw in newbie tips in my cast, and the newbie tip that I'm about to give is one that probably most people already know, but you want to favor armor upgrades over shield upgrades, because obviously hull damage is more important than shield damage, and let's be honest here guys, Zealots have 100 health and 50 shields, so it's more important to protect the actual health as opposed to the shields. So if you're kind of a low level player and you didn't know that, there you go. So EGIdrA picking off the Zealot at the Xel'Naga Tower, smart move by the macro machine, as well as starting Swarm Hosts. Now, I've heard EGIdrA complain about Swarm Hosts, and I'm wondering if he's just trying new things, or if this is like an incredible, like, no, I use incredible, but a new build, like a new good build he has. We'll see though. Judging by how hard EGIdrA rages. Like, people make fun of it, but my god, I love the EGIdrA rage. So, as I observe like a drunk and move the screen around wildly, we see that desrow grabbing that +2 attack, as well as the Blink, and a shit ton of gates, as well as the Templar Archives. So, something that I've heard Zerg players complain a lot about is the fact that High Templars are so damn good in the late game. And basically Protoss can just sit on a death ball, and Zerg has to try to engage with the Roach Hydra Viper, but the Storms just rape Hydra so hard. It's ridiculous how good Storm is against Hydra. Sounded like I said EGIdrA there, but I said Hydra. Although I'm gonna guess that these Storms will be incredibly effective against EGIdrA in this game. And EGIdrA spreading creep forth, moving forward with the Swarm Host, not electing the Nidus, something that we see TLO do. He'll posture forward with the Nidus, and then he'll have the Swarm Host like in his main, and he'll have the Locust rallied, and then he'll actually have like the Locust go through the little Nidus and then disperse out in front of the base, so he won't actually be risking anything but a Nidus. So EGIdrA posturing forward with these Swarm Hosts. 2-2 on the way, as well as Hydra speed, and that's weird. He didn't let any go before he retreated. Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe he was scared of something. EGIdrA taking a 5th, spreading creep on this, so desrow will have trouble taking it. That's something that Combat X has actually talked about, is as a Zerg player, if you should have creep spreading on every base. There's really no reason not to, and I completely agree with this. Now, we have a huge attack with a Warp Prism coming out from desrow. This is what Artosis calls like the Swiss Army knife build. A little bit of everything. Stalkers with Blink, Zealots, Sentries with full energy, Archons and Immortals, as well as the Mothership Core. EGIdrA will have an incredibly hard time dealing with this, as Swarm Hosts are honestly pretty terrible defensively. Although desrow is backing off, I really don't know why. Maybe it's because of these reeds and he wasn't sure what was there. That would be my guess. But I don't know, man. I really think desrow could have done severe damage there, but hey, what the hell do I know, right? EGIdrA taking a 5th, or he's taken his 5th, excuse me. Spore going down as well as the spine, and I don't really see idrA holding this. desrow coming forth with the might of the panda toss, demolishing this base. And this is why swarm hosts are bad defensively. Look at this. Like, although idrA was ready, it didn't matter. Like, sure, desrow loses a few zealots, but it doesn't actually matter. And if desrow really didn't want to fight this, he could just recall. desrow's control slipping a bit, but nothing too severe. So idrA has Ultralisk on the way, extremely interesting and extremely entertaining, as the Ultralisk have gotten a damage buff in HOTS. And when you use Ultras now, it feels like it should. They just completely destroy everything. The Ultra and Wings of Liberty just kind of died. Although, if you go Swarm Host, Roach Hydra, it doesn't really transition very well into Ultras. As you can see, idrA hasn't even gotten +1 attack from melee, so I can definitely see that hurting him. And desrow probably doesn't have a lot of experience fighting Swarm Hosts because no one really uses them, and he's kind of taking bad trades here, in my opinion, because he doesn't really have to fight these Swarm Hosts. If I were him, I would run around and just snipe bases. I would go where the Swarm Hosts were not. Although I know for a fact that this game is a couple weeks old, so you know, you can't complain too much. People are still figuring out the game. I mean, months from now, people will still be figuring out the new game. And this is where Swarm Hosts are good. desrow has to fight this because he just took this base. So by posturing here, idrA, while sending these locusts, he's guaranteed that desrow has to fight them. And Swarm Hosts are very good against this composition. Archon, Stalker, Immortal, this is what you want to use Swarm Hosts against. Colossus and High Templar really destroy Swarm Hosts. And as you can see, idrA sending for more locusts. desrow really doesn't want to fight this, but hell, it's a choice between losing this base or losing this army. desrow really needs to start pumping out double Colossus, and as you can see, he is, as well as the Void Ray. So although it looks kind of good for idrA over here, desrow has a great economy, and he's posturing into that late game and preparing for that super Protoss Deathball that's damn near unbeatable. Just see, look how good this Colossus is. desrow went from barely being able to hold with a very good army that would be good against Roach Hydra, and just obliterating everything. I'm interested to see why desrow doesn't force field this off, but it sounds like I'm critiquing desrow's play a lot, and I'm really not. I'm just like, it's a new game. I'm just kind of theory crafting and throwing ideas out there. And desrow warping in some zealots from this proxy pylon, and idrA doesn't want to be ripped apart here. Swarm Hosts are very immobile, so very smartly putting up spines as well as researching +1 attack for those Ultras. idrA with this incredible locust contain. Although at this point desrow has 3 Colossus, so it doesn't really matter. Yes, he loses zealots. I mean, I say it doesn't matter. Look how many Swarm Hosts idrA has. It's obviously going to do some damage, but desrow's saying, fuck it, I'm tired of this shit. I'm gonna go kill all these Swarm Hosts. idrA needs to peace out of here. Or actually, he's bringing his army up. He might be baited. He might be baiting desrow here. desrow not gonna get baited. Will he lose the obs? It would be disastrous if he loses the observer, because then he can't see the Swarm Host. Looks like he's gonna save it. idrA being incredibly smart, counterattacking with Ultra Hydra, but keeping desrow contained in his base with the Swarm Host. idrA pulling back, maybe thinking desrow was going to pull back, but he didn't. Maybe he's going to try to crack this fourth. It's hard to say. idrA a little bit of sloppy control there. And desrow, great harass here. This is what desrow needs to do. He needs to continuously harass and drop idrA's bases, limit the number of limit his economy, and then get this Protoss Deathball, because it's incredibly hard for Zerg to beat Protoss in the late game with how powerful the Void Ray is, mixed with the fact that Colossus are insane against Hydras and Storm. So idrA going to attack with this wave of Locust. desrow miscontrolling his High Templar, but throwing down some good Storms. Losing the Archon. idrA posturing forward. Look, like, even with bad upgrades, the Ultras just rip through gateway units. idrA has nothing left but Hydra Swarm Hosts. He's run out of Ultras, and just in the nick of time, these Locusts come out to save the Gracken. Yeah, idrA needs to peace out with these Swarm Hosts. and he does. So idrA electing to get some Vipers. I wouldn't... Yeah, putting down all these Evo chambers. This is for the Viper's consumability. They drain a structure and gain energy. So, making some Evo chambers, and these Evo chambers, he doesn't even care if they die. These are not for upgrades, because he already has 3/3 on range. Those Evo chambers are purely for Hydra, or excuse me, for Viper energy. desrow still hasn't taken this 5th base, and he's kind of just running back and forth this army. Doesn't want to lose this base to Locust. If desrow loses this, the game's over, honestly. And idrA doing a good job of making desrow trade. desrow's really not losing much because of his Colossus numbers, but I mean, Locusts are free, guys. Obviously, so see, like just that, idrA didn't have to do anything, and he sniped the unit. And at the very least, even if he's not killing anything, this is annoying for desrow. This is preventing desrow from doing other things, like harassing with this warp prism. Oh, Colossus in there. Oh, that's an accident. I thought he was going to get some puckage on. desrow taking this base, but funnily enough, it's like pushed up with creep. Feedbacking the Vipers. Very good move from desrow. Pulling the Mothership Core with the Viper. Great move from idrA. Now desrow can't mass recall, can't time stop, and the storm going down. Good storm by desrow, kind of preventing idrA from coming up. 3 High Templar coming out of the reeds like a Battlefield 3 player. And look at idrA with the abducts on the Colossus. Great abducts. Blinding Cloud going down. desrow doing great job holding on top of this high ground. idrA with a huge, huge bank. Just an incredible bank. idrA can remax on whatever he wants. He's sitting on Oprah Winfrey money right now. desrow pumping out 2 Colossus, chrono boosting. Lovely stuff from the panda toss. And I want to see like idrA just throw down like 4 spines and just spine rush that base. desrow throwing down the storms, does not want to deal with these locusts. I think destrow's going to throw down the storms and then try to push up this ramp into the army. This would be a bad idea, and he loses the Colossus and the Immortal. Great abducts from idrA, really showcasing the power of the Viper. And I'll be interested to see whether idrA elects to throw in some Brofesters too, because if desrow commits to pushing up that ramp and gets fungled while pushing up the ramp, not only can he not leave, at that point he has to commit, and idrA can just pull all of his shit. So, that's something to look out for. Will idrA mix the Infestor in? All Zerg players, I say all, most Zerg players have written off the Infestor as kind of this unit that was really good but got nerfed to shit and isn't really good anymore. So desrow, almost losing this base. Good map control, allowed him to see the army fast enough to go save it. And we're getting into the supreme late game here, folks. This is where the Gracken is most comfortable. So, desrow, he's a very good player, but let's face it, guys. Like, idrA's probably in the top 3 foreigners. Like, idrA's so damn good. And this is where he's comfortable, so it'll be incredibly interesting to see whether desrow can hang with idrA, because this is where, like I said, idrA's comfortable, man. You do not want to face idrA in the late game. In one of my last desrow games, we saw it's 2 Colossus and an Immortal get abducted. Huge fight coming down here. 6 storms from desrow, preventing idrA from fighting. Like I was saying, we saw desrow go for the huge 2-base play on idrA and it succeed. So we know desrow can beat idrA in a non-macro game, but can he beat him in a macro game? idrA sniping more Colossus with the abduct. Incredible move. Losing an Archon for an Ultralisk. I don't know how good of a trade that is, but come on, guys. Blinding Cloud going down on the Protoss army. desrow does not want to fight here, losing a Colossus and a Void Ray. destrow's bank is running low. He needs to get some 6 storms off here, guys. This is a very prone to being stormed army. Hydras, Locusts, and Vipers. Like, huge storms going off. Great storms from desrow. But I honestly think with all the Vipers, desrow would just be better off going like Archon High Templar and just making less Colossus. desrow running around full Benny Hill, trying to snipe these hatcheries. And I'm surprised EGIdrA hasn't killed this base. It's not really that well protected. EGIdrA, we've seen him do this all game long. Posturing forward with these swarm hosts. Getting in a great position. I would love to see EGIdrA sped creep up here and then just put spines and spores down. Really just making it a living nightmare for desrow to contest this. Something Root Vibe does very well is when he goes swarm hosts, he'll spread creep all the way to his opponent's third and put spores and spines up. And just make it damn near impossible for the Protoss player to break. So it looks like desrow's gonna lose this base, folks. Jesus. Yep, he's definitely gonna lose this. Ultras, three attack, just about to finish. 8 seconds left. And although desrow has this base, it's looking bad for the panda toss here, folks. With EGIdRA's bank, EGIdRA's literally going to have to throw away. He's going to have to take a horrible engagement, sit in storms, remax on something, take more horrible storms, remax on something again, and then take more horrible storms. Like, EGIdRA has such an insane bank at this point that he can literally just throw away armies as long as he doesn't take too much damage. If desrow wasn't harassing as well as he was this game, this would be far from over. desrow doing a very good job working in Zealots and High Templar and whatnot. And because of him doing this, desrow knows, hey, your army's out in the dick farm, so I can just push up and kill this base. EGIdRA picking up 2 Colossus, doesn't really have the army to kill the Colossus, however. Blinding Cloud on the ramp, don't want to find out of that shit, so... desrow with the Mothership Core, of course, and HOTS, it does not have the Vortex, it has the time Warp and the Mass Recall, but you do get the Cloaking Field as well. So, desrow pushing forward. I think he might just say, he doesn't really have a bank, and he knows that EGIdRA has been on way more bases than him. So honestly, he might just try to push and kill him. If I was desrow, it's just so hard to say. Not only because the game's new, but because we don't really see that much late game ZVP. Usually we see like the Zerg pushing with Roach Hydra, either winning or getting obliterated. And EGIdRA finally going to kill this base. This is long overdue. Good storm by desrow though. And with this base going down and this one just now coming back up, I honestly think desrow has to all in EGIdRA here. He just doesn't have the bank to compete with EGIdRA. And if I know I'm not a pro gamer obviously, but if I was EGIdRA, see these drones, I'd literally make 25 fucking spine crawlers. Like, he's floating 10,000 minerals, and like there's really no bases left on the map. There's this one and that's about it, and this one and that's about it, which EGIdRA is going to take. But if I was EGIdRA, I would just put up an incredible amount of spine crawlers and say, look desrow, I know that you only have 4 bases, you're really only mining off of 1, so if you want to fight me, you're going to have to fight in the forest of spine crawlers. Kind of obnoxious, but... oh, and EGIdRA yoinks the Mothership. Wow. Yoinks it again. Terrible observing by me. Sorry there, folks. Getting a little lag here. But that's not good for desrow. That was like kind of his ace in the hole, in my opinion, was the Cloaking Field mixed with the fact that he could time stop this army and make it sit in storms. But EGIdRA thrusting forward like Jerry Sandusky, throwing down the Blinding Cloud. 3 observers in the army of desrow. Obviously doesn't want to get them sniped. Good storms. Like look how fragile Hydralists are. It was in storm for like a millisecond and they're all almost dead. EGIdRA throwing up more Evo chambers, so he basically has unlimited energy for his Vipers. See more banter breaking out. I hope these swarm hosts are getting a bonus on their paycheck. Great storm there from desrow, damn. But desrow's right, like these swarm hosts have done so well. They've kept desrow whittled down. See, like the swarm hosts just sniped a full, they just sniped a full energy High Templar. That's such a big deal. And EGIdRA doing a great job of picking off Colossus left and right. Great storms from desrow. And a feedback on the Viper. I've been casting for so I'm getting a little voice cracky, folks. The army of Zerg running in. Blinding Cloud going down everywhere. Good storms from desrow. Not fighting under the Blinding Cloud, that's smart. EGIdrA was actually supply blocked there. He didn't make a bunch of extra overlords, so whenever his overseers died, he got a little supply, not supply blocked, but went way down. desrow trading extremely effectively with that swarm, or excuse me, with that storm. As you can see, these swarm hosts, yeah, they're good. Yeah, they're like worth their weight in gold at this point, but to be honest with you, they're so supply intensive at 3 that if I was EGIdrA, I would just basically sacrifice them and just max out on like Ultra Infestor Broodlord. Because the reason people don't make Broodlords anymore is because of how good Tempest and Void Rays are. But honestly, like, EGIdrA should have really identified that desrow wasn't really going heavy Stargate, and he doesn't really have the money to go heavy Stargate. So if EGIdrA literally could just max on Infestor Broodlord like it was Wings of Liberty and win. And desrow finally wising up and saying, hey, I know that you're sitting behind those swarm hosts, and I'm tired of fighting them, so I'm going to run over here, act like I'm going to F you up, and then come back. Nice little cutesy counterattack here from EGIdrA. desrow posturing in the middle of the map. EGIdrA with a ton of ultras. Jesus, that's a lot of ultras. 8 ultras is almost to the point where they're like ineffective because they can't get an ineffective. Is it ineffective? I don't know. 8 ultras is almost overkill, to be honest with you, because I mean you can like fit like 3 ultras up this ramp, so. Nothing much to say here, guys. Oh, there is now. Huge abducts coming down, obliterating Colossus, obliterating Void Rays. Blinding Cloud going down on the ramp. EGIdrA running forward. He thinks he has this one, folks. desrow doesn't have any Robo units or Stargate units, and if there's one thing Ultra Hydra is good at dealing with, it's pure Stalker. He wants to force EGIdrA to run up this ramp into the cannons, but EGIdra's saying, look, come at me, bro, into my Blinding Cloud. And the panda toss decides to tap out the macro machine. This is why we see EGIdrA play for the late game so much. His mechanics are so good. He's just comfortable with it, man. Like, just look what he had morphing. 8 more Hydras on the way. Like, there was no way desrow was gonna win this. He just lost too many Colossus, too many Void Rays, and EGIdrA was just too much for him. So, great macro game. Good guy desrow actually putting in replays of him losing, which is something that you don't see very often. It makes it more entertaining if you don't know who's going to win at the beginning of the game. So, guys, if you enjoyed it, please subscribe. I've never really casted a game that long before, so I know got a little voice cracky, but you'll have to forgive me. I love you all. Both players' stream links will be in the description, and peace out.